Before I begin, I wanted to give you a bit of a background about who I am and what got me here. So until 2020, I used to work at Microsoft. This is the CEO, Satya Nadella. I really loved my job. I enjoyed working on big bet projects. One of the things that I worked on was building India's first smart village. But I always knew that I wanted to write and I wanted to build. There was this lingering entrepreneurial passion that I wanted to see where that goes. So in the middle of 2020, I decided to quit Microsoft and start a company. I moved from India, where I was based, to London. At that time, I was dating somebody. The pandemic had postponed our wedding. So quit my job, moved to London. We got married. I wrote this book. And then today's talk that I have is not really about what I've done or what I've not done, but rather about the process of figuring out what category of one meant for me and for this special lady, which I'll tell you about in a couple of minutes. My life changed on 19th of January 2024. That's the day I became Sama's dad. She walks, talks, dances on my head. We have a beautiful life in Oxford. In the morning, we drop her to the Balliol College nursery, and I spend the rest of my day teaching, researching, building. On her first birthday, a friend of mine gave us this beautiful T-shirt which had "World's Best Dad" embossed on it. I thought it was a beautiful gift. I still do. But I have a slight problem with the message. It assumes that there is a number one dad. I'm here to make the case that our obsession with being the best or trying to be number one, be it at fatherhood or as founders, could do with a bit of a tweak. Competition is for losers, says Peter Thiel, the investor and co-founder of PayPal. He adds, with a twist on Tolstoy's masterpiece Anna Karenina, that every failed company is alike in that it fails to escape competition. And for those of you who are familiar with Tolstoy's work, he said something very beautiful, remember that, which is all families are alike, all happy families are alike, all unhappy families are unhappy in their own special way, and Thiel sort of riffs off of that. While we revere competition as the ultimate performance benchmark, it deludes us into believing that opportunities are finite, and we can only get ahead if we follow standardized paths, perform well on standardized tests, and ask standardized questions. In other words, competition nudges us into playing the wrong game. If competition is for losers, then what game are winners playing? And how are they achieving professional success? In 1986, James Carse, a professor at the New York University, wrote this wonderful book, Finite and Infinite Games. In that, he explains that finite games are defined by fixed rules. There's a clear objective, and you know who you're competing against. Think of a game of football or cricket. Infinite games, on the other hand, are constantly evolving. And the whole objective is not to win or conquer, but to keep playing, keep figuring it out. The game of work and life is infinite. There is no such thing as winning in friendship, marriage, fatherhood, or practically anything that matters. To give you an example, I can't win this talk or win this meeting. The whole point is that the process of pursuing infinite games nudges us to strive for creating win-win, mutually beneficial outcomes. And we need to train ourselves to play long-term games with long-term people. It is an integral element of success in the 21st century. Author and motivational speaker Simon Sinek explains that the challenge with a lot of business leaders and CEOs is that they only pay lip service to playing infinite games, while constantly optimizing short-term outcomes and just underutilize suboptimal concerns like beating sales targets, getting to weekly goals. Don't get me wrong, they're not unimportant, but they're a subset of what we're trying to do. They need to instead ask the more difficult question. How do you create a category for yourself rather than aggressively promoting status quo? This mode of thinking, their short-term thinking, often trickles down to team and corrupts the decision-making process. And that's the one that ruins companies' culture and ruins the joy out of pursuing something that truly matters. When we risk playing with a finite mindset in an infinite game, there are three things that happen. The first is that there is a decline of trust and a reduction in cooperation. Cooperation only works when the time frame is long enough. Second, it adds fuel to short-term thinking. The biggest disadvantage of short-term thinking is that we tend to prioritize the urgent over the important. Those of us who constantly do that end up either burning out or becoming an average of whatever's going around them. And third, and most importantly, it creates this illusion of purpose. Without a clear reason for being, we can just run helter-skelter, but ultimately end up unmotivated, unprepared. Now, with this context set in mind, one might wonder if finite games play any purpose in our lives as well. While I was introduced, I was talked about my degrees and so forth. So I do well on standardized tests. But that's not the point. If I have done something well in life, it is that I have learned to understand that finite games and infinite games are not mutually distinct. In fact, the infinite game is the broader thing in which finite games sometimes help us figure out a strategy to survive. But survival is not the only thing that matters. We need to take survival into thriving, taking our entire team with us. For example, meeting your sales target is an important finite goal within the larger infinite game of serving your customers in a differentiated way for a long enough period. One of the most efficient ways we can all escape competition and play infinite games is to build our category of one. Venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz published a report, and that's the report that inspired me to write my book, Passion Economy and the Side Hustle Revolution. One of the main points that I make in the book is that the gig economy or the Uber for X model is making way for something called the passion economy, where if we look within, we can really figure out something that sets us apart, something that truly makes us unique, and monetize our creativity and individuality. While writing the book, I stumbled into hundreds of people who'd built their category of one. Take the example of Vicky Benison. She studied zoology in college, graduated with an MBA from University of Bath, but today is best known as the creator of Pasta Grannies, a YouTube channel that moves around the world to try and capture wonderful pasta recipes from Italian grandmothers. This is not a job that was set in stone. She created it by leaning in. The basic laws of demand and supply tell us that it's impossible to defend what is abundantly available. That is why it makes sense to think outside the box, be a contrarian, and build a category of one where your uniqueness quotient is your value proposition. Now the question is, how do you create your category of one? It begins by following your curiosity instead of passion and training yourself to learn across disciplines. By combining two distinct strands of thought, like in my case, being an engineer and a philosopher, you create a highly differentiated set of skill sets that helps you escape the trappings of short-term competition. World-famous chef Massimo Bottura, some of you may have heard of it, he built his category of one by fusing his culinary expertise with great design and memorable experiences. He proved to the world that you could revolutionize a cuisine, keep innovation at its heart, and yet have it deeply rooted in tradition. That is why there are many Italian chefs, but only one Massimo Bottura. What doesn't have to become a category leader overnight or category creator overnight? It takes years of consistent focus and community building, especially if the goal is to build your category of one. Wired co-founder Kevin Kelly came up with this concept of 1,000 true fans, as applicable to early stage founders as it is to enterprises. There he says that simply having 1,000 people who truly understands your uniqueness, your value proposition, you can carve out a meaningful career and build a meaningful organization because that number 1,000 exponentially expands over a period of time. And I've seen that with my own entrepreneurial journey, be it getting funded by Facebook or having a stake acquired by a unicorn. The fact that we have always had 1,000 true fans cheering for us on Network Capital has been one of the most interesting things and most energizing things of building the business. The 21st century will be sprinkled with multiple disruptions in work and life. Reinventing ourselves will be the single most valuable skill that we can all think of. But reinvention doesn't necessarily mean recreation. Those who chase every hot trend and compete for every hot outcome will end up exhausted. But those who build their category of one will make a tangible impact and have fun doing so. We live in tricky times where most of what makes the news is some version of a short list or a ranking or scorecard. It may matter in the moment, but it moves into oblivion soon after. What really matters is how these movements come together on a long enough time scale. That's the essence of the category of one philosophy. So what's my message to Summer and what's my message to you? Some of the most interesting entrepreneurs, investors, and policymakers in the world. Play the infinite game with the people you truly care about, with the unique cocktails of skills, interests, and experiences you've nurtured over time, without worrying about how you're ranked in a particular moment. Building your category of one won't be easy, but it'll be well worth your adventure. Go for it. Thank you very much.